So Spider-Man Miles Morales is the game that has changed my view on adventure games, right? It's one thing to have adventures in games. It's another thing to be fully immersed in an experience like Spider-Man Miles Morales, where I lost so much hours, okay, that's how good it is. Okay. So I don't know what the other Spider-Man does with that particular, not necessarily time management or time lost, but while you're playing the game, it's a combination of gripping storytelling as well as a seamless transition between the storytelling into the action of the city itself, right? So a couple of things I want to point out. They give you the option to check out what the previous story in the first game, if you want to call it that, that leads into this game. Okay. And then from there, you find out what happened, if anything. I'm trying to make sure because it might be spoiler territory right here, but you find out what happens with different characters in the first game, the Spider-Man Peter Parker, into this game, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and they give you the option to either watch it or not watch it at the beginning of the game. Okay. So that was cool. That caught my attention. The next thing that caught my attention is, of course, representation, right? We all want a game that represents us, who we are. And this was even more impactful for me because Miles is from Brooklyn, right? And I'm from Brooklyn. So we have that. And just the intro of the menu system before they give you the option to press start, right? It shows him riding the train in the city. And I could speak to that because I've done that. But not only that, but what he was wearing was specifically interesting because he had a jacket that has the fur on the top, on the hood part, and he has a red sweater. I think he has jeans, maybe blue jeans or whatever. But he has Tim's on, right? And iconically for individuals who are from the city, a combination of that jacket, the sweater, the jeans, and the shoes was just spot on, right? So that was one thing that caught my attention. So they lead you into that particular frame. You see the title screen, you see what he's wearing. They do a close up to the headphones, a close up to the jacket, a super close up of the shoes. So you get all that feel before you even press start, right? So then you press start and you start playing the game. A couple of things that stick out for me: super well done cinematics between the transitions from the game, from the cinematics to the actual game itself. Awesome storytelling, acting, beautiful storytelling and acting. Even the sounds of the city, as well as the things that people would do in the city, dance in the city to merengue or bachata or that kind of stuff. You see that in the city. You hear individuals saying hey Spider-Man, or you hear someone say shalom Spider-Man, so they're of a Jewish background. So you get all that feel in the city. But the beauty of the game, aside from the storytelling and just playing through it, is the swinging into the city. When you're swinging in the city, I don't know how they were able to capture that, but it feels so real when you're swinging through the city and navigating and doing tricks in the air and things like that. So I thought that was really impactful, and just you can just turn on the game just to swing in the city and just enjoy that. Just like there's certain games where you can either plant or you can just walk around, those different things like that. For this adventure game, swinging in the city is the beauty of relaxation, right? And the music, not necessarily a lo-fi, if you want to call it that, but the music that starts as soon as you start swinging in the city, right? So it's just the little things that they captured, right? So aside from that, of course, conversations with him and his mom while he's swinging through the city. You can hear the podcast from Danica, I believe that's her name. So you can hear the podcast of that. You can hear Jameson and always talking bad about Spider-Man. You hear those different conversations. You hear the conversation between him and Genki, his best friend, right? So you hear those talks as he's swinging around in the city. So those things are fantastic. The different so we can go into, let's talk about the battle system. It reminds me of Batman Arkham Asylum style, where you can go hit somebody and then connect, with the other person and try to keep the chain as close as possible. And then if they hit you, then the chain is broken for the combo. So the fluidity of combat is really impressive there as well, as you're going through the motions, and the fact that you, sounds corny, feel like Spider-Man, right? As you're evading and web slinging and trying to do those combos and flying through the city. So that whole experience is incredible, right? So the menu system gives you the option of having an app for Spider-Man, which Genki created. So in that particular app, you can access the crimes and the different things that are happening in the city to go to them, right? So all of them have like a little GPS meter counter. So from there, you would pick the crime that you want to investigate or whatever the situation is. And that's by swiping left on your controller, and that opens up the app. And then you can pick, where you want to go for that particular situation, whether that's a crime or saving a cat or whatever the case might be. So you have that. So the other thing too that's awesome is there's a lot to do, and I was surprised, right? So you have the skill tree system of the game, which allows you to, build a bear, if you will, right? You have that. And then you have all the different things you could do in the city, investigate the underground enemies. You can do a scavenging hunt with postcards. You could do kind of like the Metal Gear VR missions, but not necessarily VR. You can do those things to gain more skills. So you have those things that you can do. You can fast travel from one end to another via the train system, which is cool. So it gives you different angles of Spider-Man being on the train, maybe invisible on the train or riding the top of the train as he's doing the fast travel. So the whole map itself is huge of all the different things that you could do in the game. There is, because I'm biased and I'm fully aware of that, there's nothing negative that I could say for the game, and not because they sent it to me, is because as I said, I'm already biased because I love Spider-Man, but I didn't know Miles' story until I played this game, right? So I think that was interesting for me to experience that. They went from Brooklyn to Harlem, and then making that adjustment after different events took place, from the first game, just meeting his best friend from high school and that relationship between him and her, and how that transpires or that carries on in the game, and you get to see the different dynamics. What they really touched on that I believe they did really well is not just Spider-Man himself, but Miles as a character, right? And the tension between the decisions he has to make for his family, as well as the decisions that he has to make for the city. And I think that tug of war emotionally for him, we got to experience that. And it was very real. So like, even before we started talking about Spider-Man, as I was sharing with you, I almost cried at the end because of the tribute that they paid to the individuals that they did, as well as how they framed the ending and the cliffhanger for the potential DLCs that they're going to have in the future. You get that at the end of the game. So trying to see if I missed anything. So you have audio clips that you can listen back to. You can replay the missions if you decide to do that. You have the hologram missions that you could do in the game. You have the map that you can explore, huge map that you can explore. It was a 9+ experience for me. I think it was absolutely incredible. And I am almost sad that I didn't play the first Spider-Man. So I know that I'm going to add that in the collection at some point. But I'm glad that this was my first experience because, so now it's coming back to me. Someone said that when Miles is swinging in the city, Insomniac Games made sure that his body movements when he's in the air is a raw experience versus the refined experience of Peter Parker, right? So if you play Spider-Man Peter Parker, he's refined because he's been Spider-Man for a long time, right? So
Hmm.
Miles being very new in his, flips in the air, and it's not necessarily like like jokingly like he's trying to, but he's just not used to the finesse of a, ice skater, if you will, right? Someone who's just starting out versus someone who is like, Nancy Kerrigan, right? Who can land those things with such grace, right? Versus, so you can see that difference, and even in the swinging between Peter Parker and Miles Morales in that, and they have some conversations in the game here and there, and you get to see that. But overall, I think that it's it's an incredible experience, and I think that if you've enjoyed any adventure games in the past for superhero stuff, I think it was easy to fall into. It was easy to embrace how to play it because of playing Batman, the Arkham games. But this has something extremely special like they've done here, especially if you're a fan of comics and you're a fan of Marvel. But they've done something extremely special with Spider-Man Miles Morales, and I'm glad that I got a chance to play it. I was going to get it regardless, but you shoot your shot, and I did with PlayStation. They allowed me to check it out. Hashtag ad, right? And I'm totally happy. Like, I'm going to play some more tonight. Like, I've already beaten the campaign, but after that you get a chance to even add to the suits that you are able to experience, add different visor upgrades that you can do. You could do suit upgrades, visor upgrades. You add XP to your bar to become stronger, swing faster in the city, evade quicker, and all the different things. All the XP stuff, it's in here. But it's definitely a 9+ experience. Thoughts, questions?
I do have a couple questions. So, exploration.
Yes.
Is it open world? Does it feel open world for you to freely go and check out, Brooklyn and Harlem, as you were saying?
Well, it's open. The whole map is open to you, and there's an extension that may be DLCs, DLC stuff afterwards if they decide to open it up. But one thing that's interesting, like when I'm looking at the menu, there's one section in the menu that has two folder slots that are open on the screen that has the missions. So that tells me those folders, those empty folders, or those placeholders, if you will, may be additional missions in the future. That's just me reading into it. I'm not saying that's the case, but the main folder now is the main missions that you have now. But in terms of going anywhere that you want to go in the open environment that you have right now, it does feel very open.
Um, okay, so how about the detail of it? How they design Brooklyn? Are there any like landmarks that are familiar to you? Have you tried to like, go and find your old stomping grounds where you used to hang out when you were living in Brooklyn? How
No,
how detailed is that?
I didn't do that, but since he's in Harlem, which is the city itself, which is New York City, so because they left Brooklyn to go to Harlem, so they're in NYC. So exploring NYC, there's certain sections that look familiar to me, and there's certain I guess reimagining of them, but just the ability to navigate those areas. And for me, the city has always been comforting. It's kind of weird. So when I go to the busy city, I feel the most calming than I am in like suburbia land, if you will. So for me, it's like it's a magical space to be in, just to be able to explore the city, because that's always been a place I love to go. So even during our year of uncertainty, I would love to go into the city right now just to walk around, and I can't do that, and that bothers me a little bit. But I at least I get to be Spider-Man as I'm doing this in the game. So it definitely feels well done and free to explore. I really dig that.
I'm gonna have to ask you some geography questions because I don't know Harlem, but all this is. I know of the names. I just don't know
Yeah,
these locations or anything like that. So I'm gonna have to
absolutely.
ask you that later. But yeah,
It's really
I was
good
just
though.
wondering about like when they design the cities that he's going through because it's supposed to be real world locations. About
Yeah.
how close did they actually stay to what is there? Like if there's a deli that you love to go to, would they have that there or something similar?
Right,
I
right.
think that'd be
So
cool.
so what they do very well also in the game, which I guess I'll probably clip this for the review itself. What they do very well in the game is they allow you to experience the other characters as Miles is living his life, right? So for example, there's one section where they show a store and they show Danica, I think that's her name, the podcaster, leaving the store as you're approaching it, right? So you get to see the characters in their everyday element as you're doing what Miles does, trying to figure himself out, be the superhero of the city and stuff like that, right? And then you get also, there's another section later where it's a cutscene later in the game, so I'm not going to touch too much into it, where again, you run into a different character that you're like, oh, wow, they just, they're in this shot as well, right? So they not necessarily infuse, I don't know if infuse is the right word, but they make sure that as you're experiencing Miles's life, you're experiencing the other characters in it. The way the weaving of that experience is very well done. Between the audio calls, between him speaking with his mom, between Jameson, always saying something crazy, between Danica, the podcaster, the interviews that you hear as he's swinging through the city, the cutscenes, they make that experience very, very, very good.
Cool. No, I gotta say though, like I've already mentioned it and admitted to it that Spider-Man is definitely not on my top of superheroes. Like he's not there. But and that's what caused me not to want to play the first one. But seeing like, even just hearing what you have to say and your experience from it and seeing the gameplay from a couple of people, like highlights, I didn't see any story parts of it that it would spoil it for me. This one actually has me interested in wanting to give it a try, to give it to add it to my library. So I do want that to be one of the first 5 games I play on my PS5. But I totally get what you see. Like now that you mention it, the way that hears you saying how he swings through the cities is not as finesse, is not as clean, and that totally makes sense because that is like one of the first things that I noticed, watching it. Everybody's just excited swinging through being Spider-Man. That he wasn't as clean. It's kind of like he was like he's like still really cool
Right.
and like a little gymnast through the air there, but it wasn't. It was a little bit uncoordinated. But
Absolutely.
but that at the same time, just seeing it that way and displayed that way, not knowing that information, it looked fun.
Right.
It looked cool. It looked like, your teenage kid with this ability who's just like having fun swinging out there, enjoying, being your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah, I definitely say as soon as you can. I know you have a list of games that you're prepping to play in a particular order, but as soon as you can, definitely check it out. And the game through the experience of playing the campaign, which I did finish, because I know some individuals will be like, well, did you end the game? Because how could you review a game that you didn't end? There's those conversations that happen online, but I did finish the campaign and I almost cried. Like it was that good. Like,
All
it was
right.
that good. And the game, while you're playing it, the campaign itself, the game does a fantastic job to build the tension to the next section of the next mission or whatever thing that you're getting ready to do. So they build tension very, very well as you're playing through it, and I think that's fantastic.
Cool. I'm definitely. I'll let you know when I start it. When I get it and get my hands on it, that'll be the day.
Word. So that's my review of Miles Morales Spider-Man. It's fantastic. If you haven't, definitely check it out.
Okay. I promise to do everything in my power to protect this city.
I promise.
That's it?
That oath a real thing.
Totally. Definitely didn't just make it up. See you in a few weeks, Spider-Man. New York's only Spider-Man.
I'm New York's only Spider-Man. I'm New York's only Spider-Man. Please don't screw this up.
The city late at night hit a pinnacle. Shining on my brothers, prolong, put those on the game.